Welcome to Put It to the Test, the podcast taking the best evidence for positive lifestyle change and testing it real time, week by week. My name is Cameron Suter, here with my father, Derrik Suter, and together our hope is to encourage and inspire you on your journey to lifelong health.
There are endless approaches to health. Finding the best path forward can feel overwhelming, I know. Instead of wading through the sea of restrictive diets and exercise programs, let's try something different. What if there is a way to not only lose weight, but to gain a lifestyle that allows for sustained, ongoing, and ever-increasing well-being? I'm going to put it to the test. This podcast chronicles my own journey with the support of my son to adopt a truly healthy lifestyle.
So join us as we discuss the factors that play into health from an easily digestible layman's perspective. All things from habits and mindsets to nutrition and exercise. And with that, let's get started. All right, well, I thought we would begin with a little bit of context as to the why of this podcast. I think you and I both have, in our own ways, learned that pursuing healthy lifestyles can be difficult, maybe a little bit complicated at times as well. So I thought we'd start out just by asking you what the impetus for Put It to the Test came from with your recent health experiences. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
I'll go back a little bit further. I've struggled with weight all of my life from the time I was a kid. It actually started when I was 5 years old and I had my tonsils removed. And at that point, I discovered food. Prior to that, whatever was going on medically inside my throat, I couldn't swallow.
Oh, okay.
I didn't feel, from what I can remember, I couldn't swallow anything. I didn't enjoy food. Virtually didn't taste food or anything. I was a very high energy kid, which was amazing that I could do anything because I ate so little. I remember actually myself falling asleep at the dinner table several times.
Really?
Because my parents would say, "You're not getting up. You're not going to play until you clean up your plate." And I'd just fall asleep there. And then they'd, okay, get up and go play or put me to bed, whichever. So that was the turning point. Plus, shortly thereafter, I went to first grade. So I went from this high-level activity, 5-year-old kid running around all over the place to sit still and pay attention and limited outdoor time. And the combination of those two, discovering, wow, food tastes good, I enjoy it, to long periods of inactivity, I just became a kid that I didn't care to exercise much. I enjoyed food much more. Several other things that I just kind of contributed to that lifestyle that I became a heavy kid. And by second grade, I was the second heaviest kid in my class. By third grade, I was the heaviest kid in the class. And that pretty much progressed all the way up till high school.
Sure.
And when I graduated high school, I think I weighed probably around 245, 250. And for someone who's 6 feet tall, that's a pretty good sized person. Of course, I went to college, and there was the freshman 15 was actually about for me, that was the freshman 40. So I think my top weight my freshman year in college was about 275, 280.
Okay.
After my freshman year, I came home to stay for the summer, and my mother basically said, "We're going to figure this out." So I went to a doctor, and they ran what was called back then, I don't know what the test would be equivalent today, but it was a GTT, a glucose tolerance test,
Okay.
which is to test to see if you have diabetes, which I did not, but I was borderline, which kind of scared me at the time. So my mother took it upon herself to put me on her diet for me. I guess if you went forward today, it would be the equivalent of a keto diet.
Interesting.
So I could have practically any kind of meat I wanted, fresh fruits and vegetables that I wanted, but no carbohydrates.
Okay.
So that was it. And within several weeks, I lost easily 20 pounds. By the time I finished my sophomore year of college, I was down to about 210, 220.
Wow,
And
okay.
I maintained that through the rest of my college career up until even several years after that 210, 220 range, which was pretty much ideal for me through my early adult life. Then got married, first kid, the weight came back on. It was my sympathy weight for my wife's pregnancy. So the cycle began again. I went and I got some dieting consulting through professional group with supplements and drink mixes and so on. So when I started that diet, I was probably in the 260 range, dropped down to the lowest I'd ever been in my adult life, 185, for about 10 seconds.
I remember seeing photos of you at that time. You had a great mustache at the time.
Yes.
And you looked really trim as well. I remember that.
Late 80s, early 90s. That lasted not very long at all until, again, I just started creeping back up with the weight. And then second child comes along, your sister, Kristen, and I gained the weight again. Back up into that 250, 260 range. Went back to a different diet consultant. Lost the weight, got down to 200 pounds, 205. Maintained that for a while. Again, the weight kept creeping back on. Then when you were born, 1995, the same thing happened. I went back up to around the same range. So that seemed to be my set point biologically, this 260, 275, even though I've been up. But wait, there's more. I've struggled with this all my life, and it's been difficult. I've made the joke to different people that I've lost more weight than anybody in history. I just keep losing the same 50, 60, 70 pounds over and over and over again. And I've been on probably 3 or 4 different diet programs here in the 2000s up to present time with various success, and of course, never being able to stick with anything. Well, the most recent occurrence and the reason why this podcast has started, which I'll get into, is I went for my yearly physical earlier this year, and my cholesterol levels were high, triglyceride levels were high, all the blood work levels were indicative of issues. So my physician ordered calcium coronary test, which is a CT scan where they inject a dye and illuminate your arteries to see if there's any indication of some sort of blockage. That test came back with a high level of indicating probability for coronary artery disease. And that scared the daylights out of me. And I felt that that's the 47th, 88th wake-up call, whatever number it is, that I've not paid attention to for a very long time that really scared me. Consequently, there was another stress test that was ordered, and it came back indicating very low risk for blockage. I don't know the extent of the technical terminology for everything, but basically it showed no blockage and a low risk for blockage at this time. So thankfully, my doctor caught this in time for us to be able to do something preventatively about it. And that's where the whole mental switch is turned and where I'm coming to you.
Yeah.
For those listening, Cameron has become a lay expert on the area of fitness and nutritional lifestyle techniques. So I'm relying on his guidance to coach and mentor me through this process of obtaining a healthier lifestyle for myself. And I'll share a lot of personal information. I'll be 62 years old. If I don't get healthy now, I'm not going to be able to enjoy health in the future. And that's what this is all about. It seems as if there's been a mental commitment that I can't explain, I don't understand. It's something I've not felt with any other diet program that I've been through before, and that's the key. Everything else has been a diet program, even though the teaching behind it was saying, well, you need to make lifestyle changes. And I understood that. But in my mind, there was always the choice. And also, given my past history, I guess I didn't feel that I believed it enough that, oh, I can go back to that old lifestyle. I can eat the way I used to.
Sure.
And I always fell back to the old habits. Well, now I feel like there are no old habits to go back to because they got me where I was.
Yeah.
Looking at coronary artery disease, and that scares the living daylights out of me, and rightfully so. So, upon getting that diagnosis and seeing that there is hope, I started turning to Cameron and information and literature that we were both aware of, and namely the works of Dr. Michael Greger. For those of you who are familiar with or may not be familiar with, he has written the series How Not to Die books. It's very enlightening on sharing information on a plant-based diet and how it can have a restorative effect on your health. And that's what I'm working on now, is to restore my health, to reverse the damage that has already been done and to prevent any further damage going on. One of Dr. Greger's phrases, which has become his trademark phrase, is put it to the test, meaning how do we know that eating a plant-based diet is beneficial to you? Well, put it to the test. And that's the name of the podcast for that specific reason, is that I am putting this lifestyle to the test. It can do nothing but benefit me, but in order to prove it to myself, I have to put it to the test.
Yeah.
The reason to share this with anybody is that I'm just a regular guy. If I can do this, anybody who needs the same type of restorative health can do it too. And I want to be that person that has the success and can encourage you and be an inspiration to you that you can do it too. And along the way of this journey, I'm going to share the successes and sometimes the failures that I may experience as well of achieving my goal. And a little later on, maybe not this episode, but in further episodes, I'll share what that goal is at some point. But again, like any goal, it's got to be achievable and it's got to be measurable and it's got to be realistic. So I have in mind what I want my goal to be, but until I get a little bit further into this process, I'm not going to share that information. That's for a future time.
Well, that's an incredible recap. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm so excited to do this podcast with you, because a lot of this is maybe information that I never really thought to ask before. I know as a family, we've had our collective ups and downs with health, which is totally normal for us to experience that together. But I love that we're able to dig into this beyond just a nutritional perspective, but also just from a mental, emotional perspective throughout history, because a lot of times that's what drives us into the place of health or unhealth in different circumstances. For me, it's an honor to be able to walk through this with you. For those listening, I'll go ahead and spoil to you that my dad is incredible. He's awesome. So the fact that I get to have any sort of position that I can mentor you in something is, it truly does feel like an honor, because you've spent your whole life pouring into not only me, but all of your family. And from my perspective, while I may not have been privy to some of the internal challenges and questions that you've struggled with in regards to health over the years, from my perspective, I always saw my dad was there for us. He was always supplying for us, and his need and his benefit came second to us. And I think that can sometimes lead us into a position to where maybe we do adopt habits or put on weight for the sake of just wanting to take care of others and put their needs first and our needs last. I feel like I am the direct beneficiary of your sacrifice and a lot of that. And so it makes my heart happy that we're now in a season, especially as I'm grown, I'm 27 years old for the listener's sake, to where it's not just a father sacrificing for his children, but it's now a father and son coming together as peers and as friends, and even, as you mentioned, a new sort of mentorship relationship that we can learn from each other and move into something that's new and really good. So I'm very thankful that we get to even just have these conversations for ourselves.
Thank you, son. It's an honor for me too, and I'm looking at it from the perspective of we're a team. This is a team together. I'm very thankful for that our family shares a great concern and love. Above all, a love for one another, that we do try to take care of each other's needs, oftentimes sacrificing for each other as well. Maybe at some point as we go through this process and this journey together, I will share more about the past, the struggles of going through being an obese person. Something that I've come to realize is that obesity is a disease, just like any other disease that someone can suffer from. And oftentimes, recently we've heard the term over the past couple of years with COVID, comorbidities. One of the comorbidities, mitigating factors for people having difficulties going through the COVID experience is obesity. It is coronary heart disease. It is heart disease, artery disease, diabetes, all these things that contribute to an unhealthy lifestyle. I've been fortunate enough that I haven't experienced any other comorbidities. Well, I take that back. Actually, I suffer from AFib, atrial fibrillation, a heart condition where my heart will just randomly go out of rhythm. Maybe not so randomly. I know some of the causes behind that. Not so much causes as they are trigger points for AFib, exhaustion, lack of sleep, tiredness, too much caffeine, too much food. Those are some of the things that have contributed to my AFib episodes in the past too. So yet there's another compounding issue with my coronary cardiovascular health that it concerned me as well. So that played into that a little bit too, as far as newfound motivation. Going back to the concept that obesity is a disease. And also, I believe that abusive food consumption is a disease also. I would consider myself a foodaholic. Just like someone who is an alcoholic, I will admit that I am a foodaholic. And I was open about it. It's not like I was hiding that I'm eating food. I'm eating food. Anybody can see it any time. And it wasn't that I was sneaking food. You knew that I was downstairs eating. I have to come to terms with everything associated with health and nutrition and these habits that I've had over the past 61 plus years of improper eating with very small intermissions of proper eating. And I understand the struggles that people go through dealing with food issues. I can empathize with you. That's what I would like to convey to you, that you're not alone, that there are people out there that share your challenges and your difficulties. A lot of people, the last thing that they want to hear from someone is, I know how you feel. Well, the fact is, I do know how you feel, because that's what I have felt myself. Through self-examination, I found that in order to be the person that I want to be and to be the person for my family that I want to be, that I have to put my health life in order to achieve that. I have a beautiful granddaughter that I want to see her grow into full adulthood and beyond. Those are the things that concern me, that if I don't change something now, that I won't have a now in the future. Those are the things that I want to share from my heart. In the context of the podcast, I'm willing to put myself into this situation to put this to the test. Can you take on a plant-based lifestyle of eating vegan, vegetarian foods, plant-based supplements, and nutritional items? Can you not only lose weight, but reverse adverse health effects and continue on with a very healthy lifestyle? And that's what I'm doing. And I hope you'll take the journey with me.
So moving forward, we will continue to discuss a whole myriad of topics, because these topics impact so many areas of our life. And next week, we will dive into a little bit more about my experience with health and how this plays into where my dad and I are moving forward together. So if you've enjoyed listening to this episode of Put It to the Test, consider liking it, commenting on it, sharing it, whatever is applicable for the platform that you are viewing it on. So stay tuned for episode 2 of Put It to the Test.